The Doctor, as amazing as he is, needs to have a companion by his side. This is not just tradition, it's a vital necessity. Being an immortal, time hopping alien of vast intelligence, the Doctor tends to get very cold and aloof to the plight of lesser beings when he's on his own. He recognizes this flaw in himself and generally ensures that he always has the humanizing influence of, well, a human at his side. Today, we're going to be looking at the top 10 best companions of the Doctor. The first two entries I'll cover are significantly more awesome than their positions on this list would indicate. Technically, I don't consider them actual companions. I think they're both so much more than that as characters. Nevertheless, I did have two spots to fill. And one final note also, I could have reached back into the before times to the days of the pre-Eccleston Doctors and had a vast plethora of companions to select from. Unfortunately, though, I kind of hate old TV and movies, unless it has John Wayne in it. You'll no doubt notice that a couple of the old school Doctor companions have made it onto this list, but that's simply because they were too significant to ignore. And so we begin with... Originally a time agent from the 51st century, he became a con man, an antique smuggler, a priest, a tomb raider, a soldier, and a pilot. During his first few adventures with Rose and the Ninth Doctor, Jack was shot and killed by a Dalek. Granted immortality by Rose, who was going through some stuff at that time, he found himself left behind, or is it left ahead, way far, far away in the future. Now, one of the things that makes Jack kind of interesting is that virtually all of the other traveling companions that went with the Doctor, they had the benefit of the Doctor's approval and support. Jack, however, was someone he usually sought out to avoid. Much like our next entry on the list, Jack wasn't in any way reliant on the Doctor for generating excitement and adventure. He usually didn't need to bum a ride in the TARDIS. He had his own methods of bouncing around through time and space.
Wish I'd never met you, Doctor.
The daughter of two of the Doctor's married companions, River Song was actually conceived in the TARDIS while it was en route through the vortex of time and space. This granted her many abilities normally only seen before in the Time Lords. She was a rogue, a scoundrel, and a seductress, usually living her life outside the boundaries of the law. River never accepted the Doctor's numerous offers to travel with him in the TARDIS on a regular basis, so rather than a companion, she was more his equal, in a way that no one else really ever has been. Who else has the Doctor ever encountered in his vast lifespan that ever gets the better of him time and time again? She only appeared in a total of 17 episodes, which is really hard to believe because she had such a profound impact on the series. Though her appearances were scattered throughout the tenure of a number of the Doctors, she was part of a broad, overarching storyline. One of the more clever aspects of her appearances involved the diary. Gifted to her by the Doctor, this allowed them to compare notes each time they met up in time, catching up with each other while avoiding spoilers of what was to come in each other's lives. LEELA was a warrior from the Sevatim tribe of some planet that was never actually named. She usually dressed like a cave woman, draped in animal pelts and carrying various forms of archaic weaponry. As you can imagine, some fans enjoyed her presence due to the skimpy Raquel Welch in 1 million BC type outfit she wore. She no doubt gained a lot of popularity from being companion to Tom Baker's Doctor, who most old-school Whovians consider the greatest Doctor of all time. LEELA's direct, uncultured ways tended to pose a sharp and amusing contrast to that Doctor's whimsical, upbeat attitude. While he would be well-versed and respectful of traditions of other cultures, it was not unusual to see LEELA doing whatever she wanted, even skinning and eating animals at the table. Before we move on to the next item on our list, I'd like to take a moment to ask that you remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. And now, back to the list. I really wanted to have Martha Jones higher on the list. I liked her throughout her run. She was a doctor, meaning a physician rather than a Time Lord. She became a legendary revolutionary and a secret agent on Earth due to her association with the Doctor. And I think Freema, the actress playing her, is outstandingly attractive. Unfortunately, everyone following on the list just simply deserves it more. Freema's very first appearance on the show was actually not as Martha Jones. She had a somewhat prominent role playing someone completely different just 2 episodes before her introduction as Martha Jones in season 1, episode 12. I guess the producers really liked her, and maybe they hoped no one would notice the recasting in the intervening break between seasons 1 and 2 that occurred. Martha joined the show just before Billie Piper's departure and was kind of a transitional companion, never getting fully settled in. As Jones, she only appeared on 21 episodes, with 3 of those being on the spin-off Torchwood, and she got kind of a raw deal from many fans, quite simply because she was not Rose Tyler. There's a lot of reasons CLARA should be higher on the list. Many fans, and by that I mean me, think she is the absolute prettiest of all the companions, and sorry, whether I want to admit it or not, that's a serious criteria when it comes to who I'd rather watch for hours and hours on end on my television screen. Her plotline as the impossible girl retconned CLARA into literally the most important companion the Doctor has ever had. She interacted with and saved every incarnation of the Doctor throughout time. And the Doctor, of course, saved Earth and the universe a whole bunch, so CLARA, by the transitive property of world saving, can indirectly lay claim to those accomplishments as well. So she's a pretty big deal as a companion. She came in at the end of Matt Smith's reign and spent the majority of her companioning time with Capaldi's Doctor. I think it's fair to say that a great deal of the popularity of any given companion has a lot to do with the quality of the Doctor they're with, as well as the quality of stories during their run. Capaldi's Doctor was adequate, sometimes even achieving greatness, but I think his first season very much suffered from the writers not really having the new Doctor's style and personality figured out. That season, he was kind of a dud, and Clara's popularity suffered for it. Disclaimer: if I was an old school Whovian, Sarah Jane Smith would be at the #1 spot of this list, no question. So apologies to anyone watching who is outraged at my putting her anywhere else on this list. I just really don't know her that well. Feel free to vent at me in the comments. Her resume is simply unbeatable. She claims friendship with Doctors 3, 4, 5, and 10, and has had some form of interaction with another 4 of them. When she departed her regular run, she got to keep K9 Mark I, the robot dog. Sarah Jane later got her own successful spin-off that ran 5 seasons before the actress's untimely death in 2011. Sarah Jane was nice, smart, capable, and most fans of the classic Doctor Who consider her the absolute ultimate companion by which all others should be measured. Donna wasn't chosen by the Doctor to be his companion. She actually kind of stumbled her way into the job while escaping from her own wedding. Personally, I did not want to like her at first because she wasn't a 20-something piece of eye candy like Rose and Martha were. I quickly got over this unfair bias, though. Though only having a long slew of temp work jobs on her resume prior to meeting the Doctor, her character had an outstandingly strong self-confidence and competence.
Oh, I don't need your permission, I'll tell her myself.
Donna's relationship with the Doctor was both unique and a real treat to watch. She had a platonic, absolutely take-no-shit attitudes toward him, almost seeming to consider the powerful Time Lord as a bit absurd at times. Whenever anyone asked if she and the Doctor were involved, although they would both quickly interject a loud and emphatic no, she would do it with a look on her face like, what, this silly little man? Despite this, I think she really got the Doctor. She understands the Doctor so well, including why it's vital for him to have a companion in the first place. This insight helped her pull the Doctor back from the brink after he lost Rose. Don't ask me to separate these two on my list. Not only do they come as a package deal, but separately I would have a hard time placing one above the other, truthfully. So, first of all, in defense of Rory ahead of all the others on this list, first of all, he's a nurse. I, myself, am an RN by profession, and dude nurses gotta look out for each other. Second, he's surprisingly cool about competing with the Doctor for Amy's affection. He's obviously jealous and insecure a lot of the time, but he's never really a douche about it. Third, the man has fought, suffered, and endured more than any other companion. He's died somewhere between 6 and 11 times, depending on how you count it. He's also the boy who waited, aka the last centurion. When his boo was trapped in a stasis box way back in our history, Rory stood outside guarding her for almost 2 millennia.
Where is my wife?
In that time, the nurse became a Roman centurion, transforming from healer to warrior. He fought off raiders and invaders, dragged her through a massive fire, and witnessed the fall of Rome.
Would you like me to repeat the question?
As far as Amy Pond goes, after a string of transitional seeming companions like Martha and Donna, who kind of sort of belonged to a couple of different doctors and almost seemed like placeholders, Amy was the first companion of the modern era that actually belonged with one specific doctor. Even Rose Tyler, arguably one of the biggest fan favorites and possibly greatest companions ever of the modern era, split her time companioning with both Eccleston and Tennant. But Amelia, the girl who waited, she belonged solely to Matt Smith. Also, another point about her, she had this decade-long childhood crush on the Doctor. But really, when it came down to it, she had a man. His name was Rory. After the initial flirty business when Amy's adult kissogram self reunited with the Doctor, she got on with living her life with Rory. This is greatly in contrast to the many other companions, most if not all, who seem to have had this whole unrequited crush on the Doctor, except for Donna. We already talked about Donna. Together, Amy and Rory showed us the ins and outs, the ups and downs of relationships and marriage. They were such a solid couple throughout that even when they were broken up, you knew they'd end up living out their lives together. And as far as the couple goes, bonus points for turning out to be the parents of Melody Pond, aka River Song, the Doctor's wife. Yeah, it's a little trite to have Rose Tyler as the number one spot on the list. Everyone does that. Why not be a little edgy and put Donna Noble at number one? Well, I think most people tend to be biased toward their first encounter with characters on the show. I'm unusually partial to Christopher Eccleston's portrayal of the Doctor. He was my first. Likewise, Rose was my first companion. Reasons why she belongs at the top of this list. Her sense of wonder. You could tell she was having an absolute blast, and it rubbed off on the Doctor. Her sense of humor.
That I am not amused. Yes.
The in-jokes and shared moments of humor with the Doctor, she was constantly cracking him up. Her dedication to saving lives. While Rory and Martha Jones may have been healthcare professionals, Rose made saving lives her mission. So much so to the point that she stood between the Doctor and a Dalek, a freaking Dalek, to keep the Doctor from destroying it. There's the touching, intense, sometimes steamy relationship between her and David Tennant's Doctor. While it's true that most of the series' companions go on to form a special kind of bond with their respective Doctors, none quite compare to the one shared by Rose and Tennant. The parallel universe version of the 10th Doctor even put down the sonic screwdriver and ran off to live with Rose happily ever after. Even after the real Doctor moved on after parting ways with Rose, he did something completely uncharacteristic of him. He talked about Rose to other companions. He often wouldn't shut up about her. Usually, in his various incarnations, he would always cut a fine line between his associations, but not with Rose. She was the first modern-era companion. She was the bad wolf. She gave Captain Jack his immortality. She saved countless lives, and she ended up running away with a part human, able-to-age version of the 10th Doctor. For all those reasons, she is the best Doctor Who companion. Well, that's today's video, guys. Thanks for going on this journey with us. Let us know how you liked it in the comments section, and also don't forget to like the video and subscribe to our channel as we bring you more thoughtful and intriguing content in the future.